Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. I am talking to Erin Hennessey, who is a great senior living leader. Erin, I don't actually see you out sort of on the stage enough, which is probably the wrong thing. And so I'm really excited to talk about where both the challenges and opportunities are in senior living. And you cover this wide swath of sort of healthcare and elder care. And so this would be a great conversation. And we're going to get started in our conversation right after this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. So, Erin, welcome. I want to start by saying one thing. If I am a little even weirder than usual today, it's because I did not get enough sleep the last night. I did a quick round trip to see there. I'm already slurring my words, right? To Leading Age, New Jersey, to moderate a really great panel on business intelligence, and I didn't get to bed until 1 o'clock this morning, and so I'm still feeling a little punchy. And
All
so,
right.
you might if you want to laugh at me or poke fun at me or something, that's all okay. That's really good.
That's okay.
So,
We'll have a
Erin,
punchy conversation. I love it.
great. So, actually, what I want to do, and I want to actually start out, and I'd like to have a little bit of a conversation about who you are, what Health Dimensions Group is, what kinds of things you do.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'm Erin Hennessey. I'm the CEO of Health Dimensions Group. We're based here in my hometown of Minneapolis, but we're a national organization. We're a manager and owner of senior living and long-term care communities in 9 states, as well as a consulting organization in all 50 states. So everything from financial, clinical, and operational consulting in all areas of the continuum, skilled nursing, senior housing, all the way to some of the largest health and hospital systems in the country look to us for guidance on how to take better care of seniors. So we have about 1,000 clients across the country. We have about 40 senior living communities in 9 states, and super excited to be here and speak with you about kind of what we're seeing across the continuum.
So actually, because we almost never talk to this because we are like this poor stepchild in healthcare. Talk to me a little bit about how hospitals think about senior living.
Absolutely. Well, you said we're the stepchild, and that's changing. I think that in the past was very true, but I think the pandemic and the subsequent staffing challenges have really brought us to the table in a different way. Hospitals are also seeing staffing challenges, and they are seeing throughput issues. And when things are tough in post-acute and senior care, and they can't move people through the hospital, they can't move people into their surgical centers, we start to see really logjam in the entire healthcare delivery system. And one of the key parts, and there's been a lot of uh, writing on this lately, which is awesome. And even the American Hospital Association released a statement the week before last about just the importance of senior care to the entire continuum. And we have a lot of hospital clients who are really ahead of the curve when it comes to post-acute and senior care. Either they own their own assets and we're working with them on improving quality. But I would say most of them do not own the assets. What they're looking for in the market is just great partners to take their patients. And I think the integration is getting tighter. I think the perception about aging services is changing. I think as our population ages, hospitals and health systems realize that they have to really look outside those walls to where their patients are going. And I think the world has flipped a little bit because hospitals used to have preferred networks and they would make choices on where patients would go at discharge. Well, now the communities are really making that decision of who they can take based on staffing. So it's almost like a reverse preferred network. And the hospitals are in a different position than they've ever been, but they're ready to work with us, which is awesome.
So this is really cool. So you've got me going on a completely different direction than I
Okay.
thought I was going to, but that's
Okay.
all right. So where do I go first? There's so many things. Let me tell you what I want. The two things that are on top of mind right now, so you can help me not forget them. The
Okay.
first is I want to talk a little bit about hospital at home, if in where that senior living
Yes.
might play. If you have experience with that, I
Mhm.
sort of watch it from the sidelines because, as you probably know, hospital at home is not allowed in California. And so but I'm fascinated by it. And the second thing is this, is that one of the things I hear from a lot of senior living operators is it's not worth talking to hospital discharge planners about what we do, because what the hospital discharge planners do is simply point people at the lead aggregators and say, go find somebody. I have never quite believed that that's the whole story. And so I'd love to have your thoughts. Pick one and we'll do the other.
Awesome. Let's start at hospital at home, and I'd like to expand it to SNF at home as well, which some
Perfect.
health systems are doing. And I think that people think hospital at home, SNF at home, and they think of a residential home. But that really can be our setting. That can be a senior living community. We can do SNF at home and hospital at home in all different settings. And I think it's really an opportunity to partner with our care providers to keep people in their home and provide services. I think as assisted living starts to be able to take care of higher acuity patients, we're going to see these services offered at that level. I think the thing, like like many things, the trick there is scale. So how do you scale up a hospital at home or a SNF at home program? There's a lot of expensive work that you do to get it set up around staffing and technology and monitoring, but there's not always the scale that makes it profitable for the providers. However, if we look at it really broader than that, and it's not just the payment you're getting for those 10 patients that you're monitoring, and you start to think about the cost savings with keeping someone in their home, however they define home, could be with us, could be at their home, could be at their kids' home, how we define it. That we're going to keep them there, we're going to reduce hospitalizations, and we're going to reduce overall expense of care. And I think that is where then senior care providers need to be at the table and say, we're ready to partner on all of these really high acuity, innovative models of care, but it's expensive to do this. So then we need to be at the table, not only from a partnership perspective, but payment. And how are we a part of saving the healthcare system dollars? And then how do we get the share of that should be ours? So I think that's a huge part of the future. And I think technology is going to make it possible.
I have a friend who's a relatively small operator here in California, and he has put a lot of time and effort into energy into figuring out alternative payment sources from hospitals and PACEs, and of course from waiver program. And it's been very, very profitable for him. And I think traditionally we've thought in the senior living space that you really have two ways to get revenue, right? It's the sort of the basic rent, and then whatever additional care services that you get, with
Yeah.
maybe this little weird thing of waiver program off to the side. I think we actually have no idea how much money is available, and the hospitals are really struggling, right? I know that in Sacramento here where I live, the hospitals are dying because they don't have enough beds. And so if you can relieve that pressure, they will pay you to make that happen. So we're actually getting ready to do a conference. I think you probably should come speak at it. But we're
Okay.
going to do a tech innovation conference. We originally were going to do it in August. We just could not. We've got our life enrichment. We couldn't do both of them at the same time. So we're going to do it early next year. And one of the things we want to talk about is how do we innovate by creating more revenue sources like that.
Absolutely.
So
Because there has to be revenue source, and there also has to be a piece of the pie for cost savings. And then
it,
you had that second question about there's no benefit of talking to the discharge planners and they're just sending them to the list. And I disagree. Like you said, I really disagree, because like you said, they're in a really tough spot. And I do think the hospitals are listening, especially hospitals that are innovative and partnership driven, which I think most are. They're looking for help from the senior care space. And it may not be, the ED of your senior community calling the discharge planner. It may be a little bit higher up where we have a regional calling a, director of case management. So it may not be that level where they're operating really tactically of, will you take this patient on this day? But really a higher level conversation, they're all ears. And for all the same reasons we discussed about staffing and capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that part of the problem that I see, Erin, is that I think people get intimidated. And so what you said was really critical is maybe the contact doesn't need to be the discharge planner. Maybe you need to say, my target is to go meet with the hospital CEO or somebody who's on that top level staff and have conversations and talk about. I think what happens is I go in there and say, well, give me patients, give me give me, and the conversation really needs to be, can I help you with the problems that you're facing?
Yeah, and they're all
change it.
ears. They're all ears. And also, most of our hospital clients right now are open to financial partnerships that make it work. They know that the patients they're having trouble discharging maybe not have the best pay, or they may have social complexities. They may have all sorts of different reasons that there's that barrier. And they're willing to help the financial piece of it, whether that's, guaranteeing payment if they don't get payment, whether that's bed lease models. There's a lot of different options. And I've also seen hospitals expanding this focus beyond just SNF, which is kind of in the traditional post-acute care setting, but also knowing that a lot of their patients they're discharging could really do well in an assisted living or personal care, as they call it in other states, setting. And they're actually working to partner with those levels of care. And I think the trick there is making sure that the assisted living providers have the clinical capability for these acute care discharges. And then also just payment, all of us continuing to advocate for payment for assisted living.
Yeah. I think there's so much opportunity for operators. And I think that, as you say, the key is really, that clinical expertise.
Yeah.
But I know that here in California, there are certainly a few things that can be done in skilled that can't be done in assisted living. But with a proper, there's so much, there's some waivers and it varies a lot from state to state. But there's so much that can be done in an assisted living environment if you have the clinical support. And with a few exceptions, the living environment in assisted living is just simply better than a nursing home.
Yeah, it is.
And that's a huge advantage, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And we're having less problems with staffing.
Yep.
In assisted living. So I think that's a place where we have the ability to care for patients. Yeah, I agree. I think if we can keep patients home wherever that is, it's important. And I think the acuity is a huge piece. As you know, we really were a SNF heavy organization, 70% SNF, 30% housing. Now we're half and half, and that was really strategic. And part of the reason I think we do a nice job in senior living is because of our experience in SNF. And there's not a lot of regulation or acuity that will scare us.
So you know how to do it.
We've got it.
Yeah.
You're going to serve it. Sounds good.
So I want to talk a little bit about the sort of the state of the industry, and we're going to start with sort of what I think is sort of the ugly stuff, and then we'll go to the opportunities and hope. Where this is not going to be just a downer kind of conversation, but I go to conferences. I've been at 3 conferences in the last 3 weeks, and sort of the public face that everybody's putting on, operators and vendors and consultants, is, things are pretty good. Things are getting better. And yeah, when I start sort of peeling the layers on the onion and talking to people and sort of look at how people are really talking and what they're really doing, and I start looking at some numbers. So Welcome Home put out a quarterly report here 6 or 8 weeks ago in which they showed that overall occupancy among all their properties that they serve, which is several thousand, had gone up almost not at all. I think it was like 0.1%. It was really flat. And then I was just talking with Charles Mann at AccuShield, and he was telling me that as they look at people who are actually coming into senior living communities, what they're seeing is that, in fact, agency use, if anything, is again just it's a tiny figure, but is actually creeping up again and not. And so it's kind of how do you see the market? Are you depressed? Are you excited? Do we need more truth? I don't know where even the right question to ask. I just am really curious about your thoughts on all
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think you're spot on. I think that, yeah, everyone's talking about it being better. And I think when you have to kind of understand the timeline, like, is it better than like the deepest, darkest COVID days? Yeah. I mean, it's a lot better than when we
Yeah.
couldn't have visitors and our residents were dying. And yeah, it's a lot better than then. But we still have a lot of challenges. And I think that as operators, and there are so many collaborative operators in our space. It's really a profession where I feel like people are so open, but we could even be more open. And I think every single one of us has a market where we're struggling. When you have a portfolio of a certain size, it's no secret that we all have one or two markets that have some unique pressures. So I think that there's a few things kind of pushing on us right now. So the vaccine a few years ago changed everything, right? You know, we kind of are back to, as we say, normal. But there is still kind of this consumer confidence that's kind of has a tail on it. The subsequent labor crisis, which is really concerning for everyone, and it seems to be getting a little better in some markets, but in other markets, still really challenging. We have interest rates, so we're seeing some market activity slow down. So I think that there still are pressures. For me, when I talk about, is it better? Am I depressed? Am I excited? I would say market by market, there's some really unique things. So we have some markets where, you know, we've been out of agency for a very long time. We're running at 90 plus occupancy. Things are really humming along. We have other markets where we haven't seen quite the bounce back in occupancy, and we are still struggling getting kind of that final bit agency out. And so for us, it's very market specific. But I think people on the whole are feeling much better and confident, and so am I. But I think, you know, if we're all really honest, we always have a couple. I always say everyone has a couple problem children.
Yeah, yeah. I hear that. I hear that a lot. So I want to just remind everybody here that we have in just a few weeks our our Evolve Life Enrichment conference coming up. It's over 2 weeks, so it's 3 hours on a Tuesday, 3 hours on a Thursday. Same thing the next week. It is so stinking cheap. It is practically free. Every executive director should sign up because there will be good content for you that will make your operations better. You should sign up every one of your life enrichment people. And of course, you're thinking, okay, Steve, but what if my people are working and they can't watch it? That is okay. We will make all the recordings available for at least a year. And the pricing is, I don't know, 150 or something like that. I think it's a little bit less than that. And if you've got an organization and you would like to have a group rate because you want everybody there, we will reach out to me and we will figure that out for you. It will transform your organization. I guess the thing I'd like to say is that when you think about it, the only thing that senior living really has to sell is the life experience, right? The care stuff, the transportation stuff, the food stuff, you can always get at home. You can't get the life experience. And what the Evolve conference does is gives you the ability to create better experiences, and that will attract more residents. So spend $150 to go to this and get another resident for $100,000 worth of revenue. That's a pretty good trade-off. What do you think?
I agree. It's the lifestyle. That's at the end of the day, what we provide is a life experience and people living their best life.
So I'm gonna actually I want to do a couple of lightning round questions, and we'll come back to
Okay.
sort of more specific to the industry. But here's my first question. What magazine cover would you love to be on?
I would say People Magazine.
Okay.
It's
Why?
usually, it's usually all pretty positive.
Okay, I like that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's usually kind of upbeat, like it's usually nothing horrible. And I think I would love to be on there. I love animals, and I've got, my rescue dogs, and that's kind of my passion. So I would like to be on the cover of there talking about dogs.
Ah, perfect. You may be able. I've got 3 dogs in my house right now. I'm a little afraid you may be able to hear one of them. They're 3 big dogs. But what's the if you were talking to Jada, our producer, is a relatively new grad, and she really likes this question. And Jada, thank you for everything you're doing behind the
Yes,
scenes. So I'm
thank
going to
you.
ask this question for her, and that is this: if you could give one piece of advice to somebody who's just coming into senior living, or just maybe even career advice outside of senior living, what would that be?
Oh, ask for help. I was just thinking of that this morning. I think in our profession, we are so excited for other people to join our profession, and people want to help others. And I would say ask for help. No one is born knowing how to run senior living communities. It's all acquired. It's not anything, you just aren't born knowing how to do it. And you have to learn it by doing it in many cases. And you can't get that experience any faster than you can live it. So I just encourage people to ask for help. There's so many of us who've been operators for a long time and want to help. So I would say reach out for help, find a good mentor, ask questions, be open and humble. Say, I need help. I can't figure this out.
Great. So let's go back to some more serious. I guess that was sort of a serious question.
Yeah.
But when you look at the industry today, where do you think we're going? Where do you see
Oh,
opportunities for us to get better?
gosh, I think we're getting to a great place. I think they're like, talking about the Evolve conference and just the education that we see around resident life and focusing on consumer experience and the culinary experience and the technology around our clinical care and these beautiful buildings. I think we're kind of coming in this place where clinical meets technology meets lifestyle, and we're going to be able to have this product that people really want. And then you look at what's coming for active adult. People want that. When we're looking at what we're finding for campuses that have a variety of care levels, we're seeing things going across everywhere from attainable and affordable, to very high end. I think we're at this place where all these things we've worked on for many years are coming together, and you're starting to see products that I think the consumer is really going to want, and it's going to be a place where people seek out this lifestyle versus needing it. So I'm hopeful, and I feel like we're just kind of at this turning point that in 10 years, when we have a lot of seniors to take care of, we're going to be providing with them with something they want.
So I'm really I've spent a lot. I'm a bit older than you, and so I'm starting to think a lot more about what kind of senior living experience I would like to have. I got to think I got a few years before I'm going to do that. But I think that for me, one of the biggest challenges that I see, and I recognize this might not be true for everybody, but I find that I don't like the idea that I'm going to be stuck in a house in a big building with a bunch of other old people. Most of my friends and colleagues are substantially younger than I am, but I also recognize that maybe when I'm 80 or 85, that will be different. So, do you have, tell me? So, here's the question: what's the senior living community that you want to live in going to be like when you get there in what 50 years or something like that?
Probably before that, but I think that the future is a broader age group. So active adult people moving in their 50s and having people there with services they need, maybe nearby. I think people are coming into active. I don't, we're kind of at the more front end of that when we talk about the length of stay. But I think it's for me, I want to live in a community that is busy, active, the lifestyle. I think that it could be multi-generational. I think that, I look at these communities where it could be seniors and college students, or it could be seniors in a daycare. And I think that that really is the future, the kind of this live, work, play model where things are all kind of combined. And I think that's the future. And I think because our life is so convenient, and we have all sorts of technologies. I imagine it being high tech and convenient, kind of like one-stop shopping. But I think that's
I
really
really,
fun. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And yet I think that for me, the thing is that I I want to be with friends, right? And I think that one of the things I always worry about as I look at our industry is we tend to be building bigger and fancier buildings, and we want to be breaking, we want to have great meals, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But I would rather be able to sit down and have dinner with you at Taco Bell than I would go to the Four Seasons by myself, because it's that human interaction. And to me, it seems like that's the big opportunity we have, is how do you create better community, better human interaction. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think you're right on. And I think that comes to a lot of design, is how do you create spaces that, yeah, people have individual apartments that they like and are comfortable and luxurious, but then there are spaces where people naturally gather, because as we all learned during COVID, we're extremely social creatures. And when you take that away, it hurts us. And I think creating spaces that are purposeful, that have tables of 2 and tables of 4 and tables of 20, and that there's spaces where you bump into people. So, there's a mail room, but next to it is this, lounge area where you just happen to sit, and just very purposeful design of helping people gather. I have a interesting story on that. We have a beautiful new community, the Brant in Omaha, and we're a few months into opening, and we had a group of residents that all moved in together, and they've become just really great friends because they were all there on day one. And in our dining area, we had a lot of tables of 4 tops and 6 tops, and just this beautiful space. Well, the residents put them all together in one table for 20, and they just love having this group brunch or breakfast. And it's just an interesting experience. Now, when I first came as an operator, I thought, well, I don't like how the tables look all lined up. It wasn't meant to look like that in the design. But then I stopped and thought, well, it doesn't really matter how it looks. Our residents want to physically be together every morning, this close to each other. And it just, every time I walk by, it makes me smile because how much they enjoy each other's company.
I love that story, and it takes me back. I stayed during a conference last year. I stayed in a memory care community, memory care and independent living. They had a guest room in Nashville, and so I stayed there for most of a week. And one evening, I went to a social event. I was talking to some older guys, and they said, "Hey, we have a coffee group every morning. Why don't you come join us?" And it was actually the last day that I was there. The conference was over, and so I was leaving that morning. And so I went and joined it. And it was just, I heard wonderful. They told stories, and they talked about their lives as they were, as adults when they were working, and as kids growing up. And I've written about it, but this one guy told me the story about how he had gone to college in California in the 60s, and he had dropped some acid or smoked some weed or something, and was wandering around the campus. And of course, at that time, the tolerance for drug use was a lot lower than it is now. That today they would have probably led him to a detox or taken him back to his room, and it would have been all BK. But he got kicked out. But he still went on to have a very successful career. And it was just this delightful story. And afterwards, I said, oh, man, I got to tell that story. But he did have a little bit of cognitive impairment. His wife was also there, so I did get permission to be able to tell that story. So I'm not telling something that I wasn't supposed to tell.
Yeah.
I talked to both the community and the wife, and that was fine. And she said, yeah, that's who he is. And so those kinds of things are simple to create, right?
Connections, humans bumping into humans. I mean, you don't have to have the most beautiful setting for that to happen. We can build the most beautiful buildings, the most expensive buildings.
Yeah.
But I think all of us in the profession know that some of the best care happens in not the most beautiful buildings, and some of the best lifestyles happen in a casual lobby versus one with a crystal chandelier. It really is the people that make it. And those conversations like that with that gentleman, I mean, he must have loved telling that story from 50 years ago, but it lives on, and that he'll remember that more than he remembered, what fabric the couch was.
That's exactly right. And so, when you see people taking the initiative to create their own spaces like you described, it just, it tells you you have set, because really our job as operators is to set the stage for people to create their own great lives, right?
Yeah.
So, I really love that a lot. So when you sort of look, when you think about the future, say the next 24 months, the next 4 years, the next 8 years, where do you see opportunity? What are you thinking about to make things better? What's next?
Gosh, I think in the next 24 months, things may be a little slow on the development front, just because of
Sure.
the interest rates. I think things will slow a little bit there. I think there'll be some opportunities for some, we do a lot of turnaround work. So I think there'll be some communities that are continuing to struggle. So I think that will be an opportunity for us. As I think we get into 5 to 10 years, it's really this like, I imagine this like perfect timing of consumer preferences that are met through technology and innovation. And we're kind of in this perfect spot to meet the needs of a large senior population that I think in 15 to 20 years, there'll be so much demand for senior care. We won't know what to do. We'll have so many seniors in need of our care. Now, I don't think it's the baby boomers right now, and I don't think the silver tsunami's here. I mean, I think the baby boomers are still young and living life. But I think in the next, 15, 20 years, there's going to be a lot of people for us to take care of. And hopefully we fine tune this, and hopefully we find ways, really so it's attainable and accessible for people. That's really, really important, because there'll be a lot of seniors who can't pay privately for what we do. And, is there a way to do that in a setting that's not Medicaid skilled? Like what is the answer for people who don't have resources, but also don't need a skilled level of care? And how do we make that possible in more states on a broader scale?
Yeah. I think it's a fascinating question. And, um, do we need smaller units and bigger common spaces? Or how do we pay that is a really tough situation. I'm actually really intrigued by in places like San Francisco and a lot of these, probably it's worse on the West Coast than in other places in the high tech space. But all of a sudden, these high-rise office buildings that were commanding huge rents are sitting empty.
Yeah.
One of the, I was a REIT or an investment trust, just announced that they are going to quit paying their mortgage on two 500-unit hotels in San Francisco because of the changing economics. And there are all these buildings that are becoming see-through, and you start wondering, what could you do with those to create a senior living environment that would be really, 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 really cool.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think we have so much opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that we need to really rethink how do we create the experience. I just finished reading a book called Find Your Yellow Tux. It's about the Savannah Bananas. They're exhibition baseball teams that just do this crazy stuff. My team, I know, is getting tired of me talking about this already. You guys will be tired of me talking about. It's a book about how to to create great experiences for, in their case, the fans, but your customers. And I made this long list of ideas that are crazy, most of them, but you start thinking, well, what would it be like if people go, man, that's the place where I want to move when I get old? Or if they're already old, they say, oh man, I want to get into that place. I just wish they didn't have such a long waiting list. I think those opportunities are out there.
They are.
So,
Yeah. We're building one where I would hope that I move in.
is that right?
It's in Parker, Colorado. It's called Terra Bluffs. It has a view of the mountains. It's on one of the most beautiful pieces of land. It has this beautiful sky bar, a gathering place that overlooks the mountain. It has, a partnership with a local medical school. So everything you'd ever need is right there. Great chef experience, a cafe, a beautiful gym with this high tech equipment. It just is somewhere I just want to move in. Dog park. But the best part of it is just the way that it flows and the spaces, the gathering spaces. that we've created, where you walk in and there's this beautiful sky bar and it's comfortable chairs and beautiful views. And I think that that's where our residents are going to want to hang out with me, hopefully.
So when's it open?
We open this fall.
Oh man, you should send me an invite. I don't know when your open house. I don't know whether I can make it, but it sounds like I'm ready to move in too. So
Honestly,
um,
it's a true beauty.
it sounds wonderful. Erin, we are out of time. Thank you so much for the conversation. This has been terrific. We need more people like you who are out
Thank
there
you.
making the world of senior living better for both the residents and the people who work in the industry. I appreciate your passion. And we were talking about gathering the last time I saw you, right? Was just this serendipity gathering in the Delta Sky Club as we were leaving the Argentum
Yeah.
conference. And I was there for about an hour. I think you left before I did, but 3 or 4 really just tremendous conversations that were just serendipity. Those are great opportunities that we are creating in the industry. So if you'll hang on for just a minute, I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, and we will be back next week.
Thanks, Steve.